Hey everybody, I'm Tarl Yarber with Fixated Real Estate. How is everybody doing right now? I hope you all are enjoying your day and also enjoying life at this moment as best as you can given the circumstances of the world. Today, I have a special treat for you. I am going to go over some BRRRRs or a BRRRR. Buy it, rehab it, rent it, refinance it, repeat. Basically, all you do is you buy a single family home or a multifamily or whatever the heck you got. And if it's all busted up and you buy it at a discounted rate, you then buy it, fix it all up, right? And then after you're done fixing it all up, refinance it or rent it, refinance, and get a nice tenant in there and then refinance and get your money back out of the job. And hopefully if you do it correctly, you have no money left into the actual project and you have a great tenant in there and you have a brand new looking house and it's cash flowing. That's the key. You got to make sure it's cash flowing. So I'm going to show you guys today my first ever BRRRR that I did. And in this first ever BRRRR, I had a lot of lessons that I learned from it. We actually still own it today, many years later. And I want to show you what we're now also doing with this project now that we've owned it for years. So it's amazing to me how many houses I flipped over the years without buying rentals. My biggest lesson that I had in this business was that I should have kept all the houses that I flipped. So if you're like me and you fit in that boat, then you're not alone. So let me go straight to sharing my screen really quick. Here on this project, I'm going to show you some before photos of this project and what that is. So here we go. So this property, we call it Decovin, and it was sent to us as a flip. This is what it looked like before pictures. There's the realtor that sent me the job. Sent me the house. He actually had it as he was sent it to him to be basically a listing. And when it was sent to him, he looked at it. The place was completely trashed and messed up. The seller wanted to be able to sell it very, very quickly. He recommended to the seller, hey, it's probably best if you just sell it off market because this thing's just trashed up. So the guy wanted to close within less than 10 days. The realtor sent it to me instead. He got a commission for it. The seller was super happy and it worked out great. So this is what it looked like. It is in Lakewood, Washington. And it was kind of messed up house. The kitchen was, of course, dated. It was completely filled with trash prior to us buying it. You could see all this great little, what's it called? Man, I don't remember what that stuff's called. Baking soda or whatever you put on the ground to get rid of the smell. And you can see these areas here. This was all cat urine and dog urine that was on the property. And it was not looking too good. And I'm happy we weren't in it when it was full of feces. This is the bathroom. Now, what I was told, and this smelled, you guys can't, here's another key thing with these properties, which I think is great, is when you can smell these properties in extreme circumstances like this, you can almost taste the money also, right? So we get really excited when a house smells really, really bad because it means that we're going to get the property at a pretty good discount. And the bathroom was completely collapsed in, mainly because of urine, from what we were told by the owner of the property, and other feces that was left there. So that's exciting. I'm happy that it's cleaned up once again before we bought it. This was the main hall bath of the property, and there was no master bath. This was the only other bathroom, and what else we got? That's it. So let me go over the numbers of the property and show you when we bought it. It was a 2-bedroom property with no bathroom, with no master suite. It only had 2 baths, so 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It needed 3 bedrooms to be able to hit the point that we needed. So no suite, and we needed to add that master suite in there. So we can either take the current the 2 bathrooms and turn one of them into a master suite, or do we add a 3rd bathroom as well? So we didn't want to do that. That's too much work. It was 13 square feet, and it had 2-car garage. The year built was 1947, so we have a lot of older houses in our area. And here's the key, and this is going to be a big key that you guys will see later on this property. It was a 15,000 square foot lot. So I don't know if any of you guys look at zoning on properties, because I never looked at zoning on properties at that time. And all I cared about was flipping houses. So when I was first looking at this house, all I thought was, can I flip this? So let me show you the numbers. This is what was sent to us. This is back in 2016. That's how long ago this was. Our purchase price was $103,000, and that includes all closing costs. And our rehab estimate was $60,000. We thought that if we were done with it, we could rent it for $1,600 a month. But here's one little secret. I never once thought about renting this house out before buying it. So I didn't even look at the rental estimates. All I thought was flip the house. So I borrowed a note from a private money lender for $163,000. And I assumed that we could probably sell it for $220,000 by the time we're done. So if you do the numbers on that as a flip, that $103,000 and $60,000 in rehab, and then you sell it for $220,000, there's a good enough buffer in there that I'll probably make about $30,000 by the time I'm done. So I thought, cool, this is a good flip. And I'm going to get in a second here, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and tell you guys some of the stuff that kind of happened. But but through that, when we got done with these numbers and we initially looked at them, actually go ahead and stop sharing. We're going to stop sharing the screen right now. And when we first after we got through this property and we were about to buy it, we bought it, we looked at things, we're like, okay, what if we kept one of these properties? What if we actually decided to, instead of selling it and flipping it, we actually kept it and decided to do a rental? So I kid you not, I used the BRRRR calculator, not the BRRRR calculator, the rental calculator at the time. And I ran the numbers in there, and it said that if I rented it out for $1,600 a month, then I might be able to actually get about $250 of cash flow on the property. So I'm like, cool, let's maybe think that this is a rental. So we went through the whole project again and continued going through it and continue rehabbing it. And go ahead and share the screen again. I'm going to switch the photos of what it'll look like when we're done with it. And so this is what it looked like when we were done. We kind of figured that if we decided to keep it and we decided to cash flow $250 a month on it, that this would be a great project. And we would continue throughout the whole project without actually stopping anything. And then we reevaluated it after we were about halfway done with the rehab. And we said, okay, let's, instead of flipping this thing, let's make this our first rental ever, right? So we got completely done and it looks very nice. You could tell that we updated the flooring, we put the new carpets in, we opened up the kitchen quite a bit, put quartz countertops, cabinets, all that great stuff. And I'm going to get to your guys' questions here in a second. So go ahead and start commenting and asking questions. And I'm going to go over some numbers here as well for how this all worked and all the issues that we had. But we added the master suite. So this was originally, this bathroom here was a bathroom that was actually in a hallway outside of a bedroom. And we decided there's a wall right in this spot. You can't really tell, but in this area here, there used to be a wall, and all we did was remove the wall and made the bedroom bigger, and we had a master suite. So we didn't actually add any new plumbing. We just changed it. So if you can imagine this wall right here, and there was a hallway, and we just rearranged it a little bit to be able to make it into a master suite. This was the bathroom that you guys saw earlier in the photos from the past, where there was a massive hole in the floor and everything was rotted out. We rearranged this a bit too, and we were able to get another bedroom into this house as well. So it became 3 bedrooms. So if you remember the initial numbers, we bought it for $103,000, $60,000 a rehab. We thought $1,600 would be the rental estimate, and it would appraise for $220,000. So instead, in 2016, so 4 months later, roughly 4 months later, our rehab was $63,891. We ended up renting it for $1,750. So by the way, going over $3,800 in rehab, that was very disappointing, but still pretty good. We paid off our private money lender of $171,000, right? So we were able to refinance not just the entire loan amount for the purchase amount, but we also had funded the rehab. So we had to leave though. Where was it? Oh, no, I don't have that in there. We refinanced a traditional mortgage at 4.5% for $176,000. Our total property purchase principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PITI, was $1,180 a month, and we cash flowed $570, renting it out for $1,750 a month. So this is looking really good. In fact, it even appraised for $275. So we were super stoked back in 2016 when this happened. Here's where I got pissed, and this is the lesson that I want you guys to remember here. I flipped hundreds of houses before this property. That's how silly it was. Hundreds. And I never kept any of them as a rental. This is our first one. So on closing, when we're looking to close on this property, escrow had told me I need to wire in $7,100 to this. And my wife and I were going on a hike that day, and I'm like, this is dumb. This house is costing me $7,100, right? That's how I was seeing it. That's how silly I was, and how, despite how experienced I looked at the time and how many deals I did, I wasn't that smart of an investor, right? All I did was flip houses. And so my wife looked at me and told me I was an idiot, and said, we're putting $7,100 in there so we can cash flow $570 a month on this thing. And it's got lots of equity, and that's all you got to leave in it. That's a 96% annual return on $7,100, right? So she made me realize that I'm not the smartest person in the world like I thought I was. And of course, we closed on the deal. In 2018, we got it reappraised, and it appraised for $340,000, and we raised the rent to $1,850. So go ahead and stop sharing the screen for a second. And so when that all happened, we were pretty excited. So we kept this rental. We had some of the best tenants that were out there. We were able to, in fact, it's 2020 right now, and we still have the same exact tenants that we had before. So they're still there. They're actually military tenants. We love them to death. They're great people. We've had maybe like two calls on any kind of maintenance requests or anything like that. So I want to go back into this property here again and tell you guys the biggest lesson on this property. The biggest lesson was that we owned this property for a few years and we never looked at the zoning, not once, not at all, ever. And then one day, a couple years later in 2019, I decided to start looking at zoning. And I started looking at our portfolio and looking at how many houses we had. And I just started pulling up the zoning in each house and trying to figure out all right, is there anything more we can do this with these properties? Because if not, maybe I'll 1031 them or do whatever. So we find something on this house and I look at it and I'm looking at a Google Earth on this house. And I realized that the house is the lot's pretty big. And why are all the other houses around it have smaller lots than my lot? And so I dug into some more and I got a civil engineer involved. And we found out that we can actually peel off another lot on this property. And you're talking that I owned this house for 3 years before I realized that I can actually get a second lot off the house. How dumb is that too? So I'm really not that smart at all. So go back and share the screen again. And I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So this is the short plat that we had created on the property. And zooming in a little bit, this is the house right here where it says lot 2. This is the house where it currently stands. And on lot 1, you can see where this little building here, that is a 2-car garage that was always on the property. It's great, 2-car garage. And we found out we can do a flag lot. So this dotted line here is actually an easement. So little trick, if we wanted to, a flag lot basically shows, oops, let me go back. It looks like this is the flag pole and this is the major flag, right? And then this would be a lot and this is a street. So you'd have 2 lots essentially. We found out while we were going through this, we thought that we'd make this all one lot so it looked like an actual flagpole, but we'd have to make this, if we did that, we'd have to make this like a 30-foot wide, 30-foot wide setback and stuff to be able to get a road in there. But if we made it an easement instead, basically making this one full lot and then doing an easement, it only needed to be 20 feet, right? Or 25 feet, something like that. So we saved 5 to 10 feet. I can't remember. Now, what can we do with this front lot? So we can leave the house here. We have to tear down this garage, but what can we do with this front lot? Well, we can build a duplex, right? So this is a duplex schematic that we had drawn up for this property that we're going to be building on this house. We put a hold on it right now because, can you guess what? Why did we put a hold on it? I don't know. Look around, watch the news. That's why we had to put a hold on it. We were in the middle of putting it all together, but we're going to get back into this as soon as we're allowed to in the state of Washington, because the state of Washington sucks. But besides the point, this is what it looks like as far as floor plan. It would be a 3-bedroom. So this is the top floor, 2 floors, bottom floor. You got a 1-car garage, duplex, kitchen, living room, dining area, mirror image on both sides. Second floor, 3 bedrooms with a master bath and another hall bath. And so you got basically 2.5 baths, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, 2 units. Looks super, super cool. And we're able to get that on the front lot. So here's the original numbers and stuff on the original house. Original house value is $340,000. We owe currently $165,000 on it. New lot value, if we just sold the lot by itself, is $80,000 already. We can do that today. Cost to build estimate plus entitlements for the new duplex would be $380,000. And we believe that the value of the completed duplex would be about $500,000 in this area, if not a little bit more. So if you combine the two, our new loans for both would be about $550,000. That's the construction loan, everything all in. Principal and taxes and insurance on the new loan amount would be about $3,500 a month. Combined rents for all 3 units now would be $5,350. Leaves us a total equity of $290,000 and annual cash flow of $22,200, right? Now, all this is great. So go ahead and stop sharing the screen for a moment. Thank you. And all this is great. And I want to get to some of you guys' questions here in a second. Really, in reality, like what I found, despite what's going on in the market and despite what is happening today, and some people are thinking, let me dump my properties. Some people are thinking like, we got to basically cut our losses and go, or what rentals do I have that I can get rid of? From my experience, or from what I've seen so far in this business, and I have a lot of friends that have had houses for decades, many, many decades. We've had Brian Burke on a webinar that we had last week. Brian Burke bought a ton of properties in 2009 after the crash. He was actually there in 96 or 95, 96 when the crash was prior to that as well. He's been buying properties for a very long time. And one of the things that he says, plus a number of other people say, is that in real estate, if you have issues with your properties now and you can hold on to them, then just wait a while and eventually real estate will appreciate and you'll be back to normal again. But you might need to wait 5 years, 10 years, who knows, right? But in the long run, real estate's always a great, great value. If we have inflation issues, that kind of stuff, real estate will continue to go up. If you just, I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is that before you cut any property that you have, think through it going, am I going to regret this 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Or is this just a knee-jerk immediate need that I have to do to be able to sell this house, right? I could look at this property now and I can I can basically sell it, right? We could sell the lot and we could sell the house and we'd walk away with a good chunk of change. But the long term of it, I don't need to sell it right now. So why react and think something's going to happen? Even if it takes 10 years for the market to change, or even if it goes down, it might not go down. Maybe it stays good. Maybe it goes back up. I don't know. But even if it takes 10 more years, I'm in this business for the long run. And this property I see as something that we can hold on for many, 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 many years to come. So I'm going to continue to hold on to it. That said, though, if you need the cash, right, and you are in a position where you're like, no, we need the money now to have more liquidity, then absolutely do your best. Make sure you're not using an emotional reaction to it. Do your best and get rid of the property if you think that it's the best thing for your business in the long run, right? But if you can withhold it in the short run, great. Then I think you should. Because if you got 10 more years or 15 more years before you actually need the money out of that property, then will your future self thank you or hate you? That's all I got to say on that part. But let's get to some questions, right? Before we do that, I want to share my screen one more time and just show you guys really quick. If you guys want to find out more about us, my company, Fixated Real Estate, you can follow us at Fixated Real Estate. You can also follow me at Tarl Yarber on Instagram. And you can go back to unsharing the screen. I just wanted to show that really quick. Thank you. And we are always doing Facebook Lives for Bigger Pockets, which we love to death, at 12 o'clock on Wednesdays. Next week, we have another webinar we have Brandon Turner, we have AJ Osborne, who you guys are going to love to hear AJ. And we also have Jay Scott next week, 12 o'clock Wednesday on Bigger Pockets Live. So be there for that. We're going to go over a whole webinar series about what's going on in the market, things that we're doing, changing, all that great stuff as a community. So let's go ahead and get to some questions and see what I can answer for you guys as best as possible. And what are all these comments? I don't understand. All right. So let's see. Location. So Marla, you asked me where the location was. This is actually in the Seattle area. It's south of Seattle, in an area called Lakewood. And so it's why is Elliot messaging people? I don't understand that. All right. How many homes can you have under an LLC? That comes from Matthew Paul. Matthew, you can have as many homes as you want on an LLC as you ever dreamed possible. There's no limit to how many homes you can have in an LLC. I guess the question to be asking is, how many homes should you have in an LLC is probably one of the better questions to ask for that, and you'll have a lot of different attorneys and a lot of different CPAs will all say completely different things to answer your question on that. What I found is a CPA will tell people that the attorneys can't do math, and attorneys will tell people that CPAs can't read. So that said, my advice on my end, I have no advice for you. I can just tell you what I do. I typically don't allow any of my LLCs for rentals to have maybe more than 3 to 4 properties in any single one of them. And I have it structured in a parent company setup. And that's me personally and how I handle that. But I highly recommend you, if you have any questions on asset protection, to definitely sit down with an asset protection attorney. There is a ton of content on Bigger Pockets that you can go to and ask questions on that as well through all the forums. Plus also there's tons of Bigger Pockets podcasts that have a lot of info on that. And they've had a lot of great speakers and CPAs and attorneys on the BP podcast that can answer more of those as well. So the Samantha Ward says she can't focus. I don't understand why not. Well, is it my voice? I don't understand. Is it something that was happening? I don't get it. Okay. What else we got? There's a lot of laughing. I don't know why my presentation was so funny. Let's see what else. Oil or gas heat, Chris. This was actually a oil tank, right? Initially, they had an oil furnace that was on the property, and we decommissioned that. There was a buried oil tank We had to get that not unburied. We had to decommission the oil tank. There's a way to do that. You hire a company that specializes in that. And they're able to decommission it officially. They register it typically with the local fire department in your local county that's been decommissioned appropriately. We then switched it over to electric heat for that property as well. So it was easier for us to do that. Oil was a little bit more challenging. There's no gas in that area, so we have to either get that piped in or not, but we switched that over. Tyler says, why did you choose carpet for the floor over any other option for the master? So what we do for our rentals, and this is something we choose to do, is that we use typically a luxury vinyl planking in all the major living areas, right? So living room, kitchen, if there's a hall bath, we put it in there, and we keep it really, really simple for that. LVP typically will last a very long time compared to other laminates and so forth that are out there. But then the bedrooms, we always use carpet. Right. Bedrooms don't have as much traffic, and it's kind of mixture. You'll find out like a lot. It's not a 50-50. I think it's more like 80% of people prefer carpet in their bedrooms. And I just pulled that statistic out of, my head. So, because that's what I think it is. So you can quote me on that. And basically, 50% of the time, I'm 100% of the time. Right. So I think about 80%. Yeah, that's what I'd say. But we put the carpet in the bedrooms because it's less foot traffic, but the rest of the house, when it comes to the major living areas, there's a lot of foot traffic. So we want to use something that's a lot more durable like LVP. But LVP is expensive compared to carpet. So that's why we also don't put it everywhere. We put it in just the major areas. So I hope that answers that question. So what other questions we got? Let's see. Who do you use for financing? A local bank? That's from Ryan Pelocci. I hope I said it right. So good question. So for us during this house, what we do now is different, but during this house, we still qualified for the Fannie Freddie, conventional mortgages. You're allowed to have 10 of those on your credit report as a real estate investor. And so we only had our personal house at the time on our credit report. So we still qualified for the Fannie Freddie loans. And so on this house, we also have never refinanced it. So it still has the same original loan we got on it 4 years ago. And so that we did is that I highly recommend you guys, if you do the BRRRR strategy, if you're using any kind of hard money or any kind of private funding, that when you go to refinance with a traditional lender, somebody that's going to do more conventional Fannie Freddie, it's not every loan officer and not every underwriter understands that business, and they don't understand your business. So it's very, very important to make sure that you work with a loan officer that understands what you're actually doing, even if it's just traditional. So don't go to most local banks. Like you walk into not local banks, most bigger banks are probably not the best banks to go to. A lot of times you want to deal with more of the local mortgage brokers or local banks, and they typically are a lot more flexible to work with you on this kind of stuff and understand your tax returns and how this all works too. So do I invest in multifamily? The largest multifamily that I have right now is a triplex, right? I almost do everything in my portfolio is single family because I've just spent most of my time in the single family world. So that's what I like to focus on the most because it's what I know. If I ever got into multifamily, then I'd be asking a lot of my multifamily friends to help me out with that, which I think is the best thing. I'd probably want to do a big multifamily without partnering somebody that knows how to do it already. All right. Why did you not pull out more equity on the cash out refi from Joshua? I didn't need it. That's why. So good question though, right? So this is one of those questions that is really determinant on you, right? Right now, that property based off of current areas that like with what it is, if you don't include the lot, that property right now is like at a 50% LTV, right? Which, yeah, you can pull that equity out and you should definitely do that if you need the money. And also if you want to lock it in at a low interest rate, especially right now, rates are super low. And we've been sitting on the fence going like, do we pull it out? Do we not pull it out now? At the time, though, we didn't pull it out because we were doing a rate refinance and not a cash out refinance. Rate refinance is a lot simpler, a lot faster, a lot easier than a cash out refinance. So that said, that's one of the reasons why we did it. We also didn't need the money, right? So we just left it in there and called it a day. And we do that with almost all our BRRRRs, is that when we don't need the money, we leave it in there. And so that way it cash flows more. And then when we need it, we can go refinance later, or we pull out it, or we have an equity line of credit on our rental. So that way we can use it. There's some banks that allow you to package multiple rentals and pull one equity line of credit on multiple rentals for one line, which is kind of cool when you can do that. For this particular property, we never touched it. We just let it sit there, and it's cash flowing right now. It's cash flowing 600 and something bucks a month because we raised rent again. And we have nothing to worry about. So, but I'm happy we never pulled out a line on it, because now that we have the second lot that's been peeled off and we're going to do the development on that, We now have a 300, it's actually about 350, 360,000 now for the house by itself that we only owe 160 on, right? So there's $200,000 of equity in the single family lot. And we have an $80,000 free and clear lot, right? We can now leverage the single family home that for the first lot, leverage that to help build the brand new duplex there, right? And we use it as collateral too. So it's great. So we have a free and clear $80,000 lot that is collateral, right? That there's no encumbrance on it because it's a separate tax APN number now, tax number. And then we also have a house that has $200,000 equity in it. So we can combine that and very easily get a building loan on it, and so a construction loan on the lot for the duplex because we have that collateral without having to put more money into it and have to refinance again. So I'm happy we didn't do it. That's not why we didn't do it. We didn't do it because just didn't need the money and I wanted to cash flow more and we just left it in there. So, all right. What else we got? The first time rental owner, we got Ken. Do you recommend acquiring second and third properties now or paying off your first property? That's a good question. So, and I think you're saying that in alignment maybe with the way the times are right now. I would say that's up to you, right? It really is. For me, we've thought about taking some of our other properties, pulling equity out and paying off one of our properties, for instance, and then getting a home equity line of credit on one of our properties. Like we have a duplex right now that's worth about $500,000. And we only owe 200,000 on it. So we thought, let's pull the equity out of some of the other rentals and then bring those other rentals up to maybe 70% LTV and then use the equity from some of those other rentals to pay the 200 grand off that's still owed on the duplex and then pull a home equity line of credit out on the entire paid off duplex, right? And then we can just go back and forth on that. I'm a bigger fan of, depending on your age and based on your photo, I'm assuming that you're not, 65 years old and about to retire. I would say you're on the building mode still. If you feel comfortable with the market and you feel comfortable with investing, then I would say it's better to use the funds that you have to continue to build your portfolio up, especially depending on where you are in your age, right? And how much time do you have? If you only have 5 more years left before you want to retire or whatever, then and you don't have enough to retire on, then yeah, you need to build your portfolio up. But if you got 10, 15, 20 years before you actually plan on living on your portfolio, then you're in the building mode right now and you should be acquiring more properties smartly. We're all investors and investors need to mitigate risks. And right now is a time to mitigate risk and figure out what's going to be the best bet, what to actually focus on, and where do you deploy your capital and where do you not. Everything we do in this business is about mitigating risk. So even with the time that's happening today, it's no different than any other time. Meaning it is very different. Let me back up, but no different as far as fundamentals go. Real estate investing fundamentals, those don't change, right? So stick to a buying criteria, and you might have to adapt your buying criteria right now. And then stick to your guns and determine if you pull the trigger on buying more properties now, or do you hold off and wait a little bit. I can tell you that I think lending is going to get more and more restrictive as time goes on. I don't think it's going to loosen up. I think it's actually going to get harder to get loans on the back end refinance of a BRRRR property. So think through that too. Make sure you guys got your finances set up. Everybody, if you're forbearancing loans, all sorts of stuff right now, you might be in a rude awakening later. All right. Oliver is asking, do I live near my investment properties? It depends. That's relative. I think the closest rental I have is about an hour away from me. And so that should give you some perspective. We're gonna have one soon that's 30 minutes away from me. But all the rentals I have are in the same state of Washington that I live in. And that has nothing to do with I thought it was a better place to invest. It's just where my business was and what we had at the time. And I didn't need to go look out of state. If I'm looking for cash flow, which I am, then I'm looking at a state right now. And I am looking at a state right now. And it's because it's cash flow is king, in my opinion. Equity, we got a bunch of different properties. We can 1031 into other properties, even out of state. So we are looking for that. And it's just a system to manage and run properties out of state, even local or whatever. But I think it's actually harder to invest in real estate when you're investing in your back door because, not back door, but backyard, because you're more likely to go see the properties all the time, touch them, feel them, look at them, be there, versus if it's far away from you, you have to build systems out to have that property work on its own. And plus also you can't go, if I'm in Seattle and I have a property out in Ohio and the toilet breaks, I can't, it's ridiculous for me to fly out there and go fix the toilet, right? So it requires me to hire out systems people, buy good properties that can manage that. Versus if it's local, I might feel like, oh, cool, I'll just save $150 or $200 and go change the toilet out myself. But what is that really costing if my time is worth like $500 an hour or something? Then it's ridiculous. So I think it's hugely important to get good at buying properties away from you, or if you buy properties near you, pretend like they're far away from you, in my opinion. Okay, so let's see what we got. 10 loans under Freddie Fannie. No, it's 10 loans that are more the conventional. Yeah, Freddie Fannie. Yep. Is a HELOC good alternative to refinancing? That completely depends, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I would highly recommend thinking through that, because HELOCs can be called, HELOCs can be pulled. If you are, a lot of times HELOCs you can only use on equity. A lot of times you can't pay off another loan with a HELOC, right? So unless you're using a HELOC from another property. So if I owe $176,000 on a house, typically they don't refinance a $176,000 mortgage into a HELOC. Typically you have to refinance that into another mortgage, right? Or sorry, another traditional mortgage of some sort. Let's see. I'm not going to answer that one. What else we got? Just in cost, you spend it, get to you quicker. I don't understand that question. Government will be giving banks to help, blah, blah. What cap rate do you target? I don't target a cap rate. Good question, though. Actually, I'm going to answer that. So Peter is asking, what cap rate do you target? So cap rates for single family homes is a little bit, in my opinion, a little different than when you're looking at multifamily. And depends also if you're doing a portfolio of single families versus buying an individual single family. For me, when I don't keep any property that I have to leave a bunch of money into, unless it's typically, this is where it gets weird. Like I only do BRRRRs, so I don't just go buy a rental, right? The only time I've ever like bought a property that did not need to be fixed up was when I 1031'd into it. And we just did that on a commercial building, for instance. So good timing on that, by the way, right? 1031 into a commercial building a few months ago. Woo, I was smart on that one too, right? Can't even rent it out right now. So or lease it out. But typically I'm looking for a property that's completely destroyed, right? Because we flipped a lot of houses, so we're good at construction. I'm going to massively build up equity into it through what we can do. And a lot of our rehabs are pretty heavy, so we can build a lot of equity into it. And then I want it to cash flow at the end. I just want it to cash flow. Even if it's only cash flowing like $150 or $200 a month, if I have the majority of my money out, then I'm going to keep it, right? Because I don't need the money right now. And so if it's a negative cash flow, then I look at it tax reasons of whether maybe to keep it. We had a property that we sold late last year that we only bought and held onto for 12 months and had it rented out for 12 months. So that way we can change our tax bracket on the property, because we didn't 1031. We wanted to sell it because we were going to get about $120,000 of profit from the property. And I didn't want that tax obligation hitting my books as ordinary income as a flip. So I held on to it and rented it out for 12 months so it can go into capital gains instead, even though it was a negative like $100 a month property, right? So we were paying $100 a month negative cash flow on it, but I didn't need the money. And I wanted to reduce my tax basis by almost half, actually more than half, by keeping the property for 12 months. So we did that. On a side note, flipping houses, you get taxed as ordinary income, not capital gains. So make sure you guys are aware of that. I'm not a tax accountant or attorney, so look it up or ask your attorney. But I get taxed as ordinary income when I flip a house, even if it's in a corporation. So think through, an S corp. C corps are different. I'm going down the weeds on that. I'm going to stop. So I don't target a cap rate. I target a return on my money, right? In a sense of, if I'm going to leave $10,000 into a rental, then actually, this is going to sound funny, but I want 40% return on that minimum, or else I'm selling it and I'm going to flip it. So that's my target for my BRRRRs, right? If I'm 1031ing into a property, completely different. I look at what's my cap rate on my equity in my current rental. And that's another thing to consider that I can go in the weeds on. So I'm going to stop doing that. All right. What else we got? What type of cash flow do you aim for per house? The market I am is very expensive. So that's from Jensen. Great question, right? The market we're in too, Seattle, is extremely expensive. Most of my properties are south of Seattle, but that we keep as rentals. So we have a little bit more of a cash flow aspect. So kind of repeat what I just said a second ago, which was I look at positive cash flow with high equity. So if I'm done with a BRRRR rental, right, and I'm done with it, and I can get most of my cash out, then as long as it's cash flowing, I'm probably going to keep it, right? The reason what's so great about BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, is that the only way a property is a good BRRRR is if it's first a good flip. You can have a good BRRRR and a good flip on the same property, but you cannot have a good BRRRR if it's not a good flip. So remember that. If it's not a good flip, it won't be a good BRRRR, okay? But it could be a good BRRRR and also be a good flip. So a solid BRRRR has 2 exit strategies minimum. You keep it and rent it out, or you can sell it and get your money and flip it and make profit. If it doesn't do that, it's not a good flip, then it's just a rental at that point, and it's not a BRRRR. So keep that in mind. If I'm buying traditionally, it's another level. I better be getting at least if I'm 1031ing into a property, then I want at least a 10% on the equity that I put it into it, which is another story for another day. All right, what else we got? We're in the Ohio area. I'm not actually looking in Ohio. What is a good location for investments after lockdown? That's a good question. If you find out, let me know, and I will be there. But I can tell you right now, one of the theories is that I think real estate is actually going to still be fine. That's my opinion, right? With what's going on, I think real estate's going to be great. I think the lending industry is going to be more and more and more restrictive. So it's going to reduce competition for investors just because not all investors can get funding. If I were in anybody else's shoes right now, I would be focused on how do I secure funding right now so I can buy opportunities that are out there. A lot of competition that's in the investment world has been knocked off their ability to be able to buy because hard money lenders aren't financing, or what they used to finance at low rates, they're now financing at higher rates again, which makes it more challenging. So I would be focused on how do I get funding, right? That's what I'd be focused on. And also back-end funding for a refi. And then as far as, I think the real opportunity is going to be in businesses, like as far as like buying. So it's in real estate's still going to be there, in my opinion. Right? I could be completely wrong, right? You're going to make your own decisions, take your own risks. That's your choice, not mine. And my choice is, I feel good, right? Multifamily is going to be kind of hurt, right? That's going to be hurt for a while. A lot of lenders aren't touching multifamily right now, so watch out for that. Commercial is going to be definitely an opportunistic area that you can jump in the commercial playing field. A lot of commercial retail office space is getting hurt a lot right now, which means there's going to be some discounts there for sure. You might have to hold on to it for a while, but think through that. You're not going to get no 60-day flip on a commercial building. And so I think commercial multifamily will have some opportunities because a lot of people are getting decimated currently in those 2 fields, which leads to opportunities on the other side. I think single family is going to be strong, right? I'm not worried about that in my market, at least. And I also think that unemployment is going to affect a lot of certain areas. So keep that in mind and watch out for that. In my area, we have unemployment, but it's not as certain parts of our area has a lot more people that can work from home than they can't. So we have a lot of tech in our area, so that kind of helps. And then but a true opportunity, the Bigger Pocket Business Podcast, Jay Scott put out a podcast a few weeks ago where I can't remember, it was a guy from Willamette, Oregon I can't remember his name, that they interviewed. And I loved that podcast, and talking about the opportunities in business that are out there right now is just going to be incredible, and helping America become stronger again with helping the businesses grow. So a business that was profitable 90 days ago and a great customer base, most of those businesses will also be the same way 90 days from now once the lockdown's over. But that owner of the company might not be so hot and able to run. So they might need help, they might need funding, they might need a partner, or they might need someone to buy them out. And so look for those opportunities and help in those areas too, not just commercial and multifamily. All right, I got time for one more question, then I'm going to be bouncing. Let's see what we got. Yeah, I like this. All right, that's a great question. Richard Wong, do you have checklists for each team member involved in the BRRRR? And if possible, can you share it with us? Right. Not going to share it, but right now, maybe I'll do another broadcast for Bigger Pockets showing those checklists, but I'm not going to just send them right now because there's too much explanation that goes into them. Always be careful that when you use other people's systems, make sure they fit your system, because our system does not fit everybody's system. But yes, we do have a checklist. Our business model is very, very strongly systemized, and they're very, very, very big. We're very, very big on lanes, right? And having lanes for people to be able to focus. So we have an acquisitions team. They have their lane. They're in charge of what they do in that area. We have a rehab team that's in charge of what they do, and they have their entire lane. And inside the rehab team, there is multiple people that move around. I'm one of them too. I focus a lot on the rehab. Like my lane and my checklist and everything with it has to do with the scope of work, right? And the floor plan. And then I work side by side with another person, Serena, who helps me with everything else. And she helps take over the rest of the project and project management. So, but through the checklist, right, when it comes to it, we're doing quality control every single week on these projects. We're checking through the scope of work. The scope of work becomes a checklist, right? And we also make sure, and there's so many checklists, dude, right? There's so many. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto. I definitely encourage everybody to read it. It allows you to take complicated checklists and turn them into very simple, practical checklists. And that's what we use. We use a program called Asana, ASANA, to control and manage all of that for us. And that's something that we created templates through these checklists that we do. But we have a whole system and checklist for acquisitions that has to go through. We have a whole system and checklist process for the rehab process, and then the back end to be able to refinance and get a tenant in there and everything else like that. And then property management has their own thing too, right? So each place, it's just mitigating through that. But I encourage everybody to do that. Okay. So I hope you guys like this. We try to do this every noon. Next week, make sure you guys tune in for sure, right? Me, Brandon Turner, AJ Osborne, and Jay Scott webinar, right? Live. Going to be broadcasting you guys 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on BP Live, plus also a bunch of other channels. And it's going to be amazing. We're going to go over, Brandon's going to talk mostly about mobile home park situations. AJ Osborne invests in multiple businesses. Plus, he's a huge storage unit investor out of Idaho. He's one of the largest out there. Jay Scott, you guys all know him. We love him to death. I invest single family. We're all experiencing very different parts of the market right now and very different things. We're going to have more of a global aspect discussion on real estate and the different market niches that are out there and what's going to be affected and what is being affected in today's market. Coming up, rent's due again May 1st. So we'll see how that's going to go. And we're going to discuss that, discuss current policies, things that are going on and changing daily for everybody as well. So tune in next week for that. That's going to be live. So hope you guys see that. And besides that, follow me at Tarl Yarber on Instagram. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe to Bigger Pockets and everything Bigger Pockets does. We love BP. So go to the forums, listen to their podcasts, and we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for being with me.